And good morning, everyone. Welcome to our meeting today for the Marketing and Business Development Network. I'm Walt Laskos, Managed Communications at Ccwa. Joining me is my colleague, Carol Anjou. Carol's down in the Delaware office. And we're pleased to have a good turnout for what promises to be a very good discussion today, dealing with marketing as it relates to the current environment we're in with COVID-19, as well as television marketing and all the implications that go into that, particularly today, given the different channels and sources of programming that are available to consumers and credit unions' desire to get in front of their audiences. Before we move forward, I just want to call everyone's attention to CCWA's annual meeting and convention. That is scheduled for October 14 through 16. It's a virtual conference, a couple hours each day. One of the nice things about the virtual conferences, of course, is we're bringing it to you. No one needs to leave their office, leave their home, travel to Mohegan Sun. Stay right at the comfort of your desk in your pajamas, pour a cup of coffee, and participate in the annual convention. And even if you cannot do it live at the time when the convention is being offered live, it's accessible 24/7. So that's one of the nice little benefits that come along with this, is that you can really be part of it anytime you want. And you know what's also very special in this regard is concurrent sessions. Usually when you're at Mohegan Sun and there's choice of sessions, breakout sessions, right? There's room 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, unless you have a way to be in different locations at the same time, you can only go to one of those sessions. And guess what? You miss all the others. With a virtual conference, you could attend all of them now. You go to the first one. When you're done there, go to the second one, play that one, go to the third one, play that one too. So you get to see everything. So that's one of the benefits that come with the virtual conference. And of course, as always, we're looking to make it not only informative, but entertaining as well. A lot of opportunities for prizes and to put something back in your pocket for taking some time to be with us and expand your opportunity to grasp some new ideas and network with your colleagues as well. So as we look to move forward, I want to say that our meeting today is broken down into two segments. The first segment, we're going to hear about 5 ways to alter your marketing around COVID-19. Our presenter is Neil Reynolds. Both presenters today, Neil, Mike Flanagan, we were all scheduled to be with you guys, I want to say, I think it was back in March. Early spring with the spring marketing and business development meeting. However, it got rescheduled, so to speak, and you all know why, as the COVID-19 started to make its appearance and everyone was directed to go into lockdown mode. But we're very pleased nonetheless to have both Neil and Mike with us today to offer their insights and their expertise. Neil Reynolds, as I'm sure that you know after seeing all the promotions and publicity, he's the founder and president of CUMarketingCenter.com. He also has spent a number of years with J. Walter Thompson Ad Agency in Chicago. And obviously, if you're up to speed relative to PR and advertising agencies, J. Walter Thompson's one of the largest, if not the largest, ad agency in the world. So Neil really comes with some very good experience in that regard. So at this point in time, we'll go to Neil. We'll have Neil's presentation. We'll take a short little break, and then we'll come back and we'll hear Mike Flanagan offer his presentation from Effective. Okay, so Neil, it is all yours, my friend.
Well, thank you so much, Walter and Carol, for putting this on today. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. And today, as Walter mentioned, I'm going to be talking about 5 ways to alter your marketing around the whole situation that we've been going through. The first thing we want to do is talk about what our current situation is. I know you are familiar with the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. Well, today our PPP is going to be the pandemic, politics, and the pain we've all been going through. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a marketer, whether you're whatever industry, we've all gone through a lot of pain over the last several months, and we've had to adjust to that. So today we want to talk about what is the situation and what can we be doing as a marketing professional to help our credit union. Obviously, our lobbies and branches were closed for a while. We currently work with about 300 financial institutions, and it's amazing how many are still closed. There's even states where you wouldn't think they would be closed. They're still closed, whether it's a lobby, whether it's a branch. We've got situations where employees may only work at the office a couple of days a week and they rotate with other employees. So we're all feeling the effects of the pandemic. And unfortunately for many people, especially senior citizens, and I'm about to get into that situation, going to the credit union was a social activity. And I'm sure a lot of you know that. I live in Atlanta now, so I'm not, I can go to the grocery store and not see anybody that I know, but I grew up in a small town and people would go to the bank or go to the credit union just for a social activity, maybe to get the coffee, maybe to get the cookies. Well, unfortunately now that is stopped. A lot of your assisted living facilities have even been put on quarantine, so those people can't even get out. So we want to address that today. As you know, the drive-throughs and ATMs became very important. Even with the drive-throughs, we work with a lot of financial institutions where they had a person inside with a bucket of Clorox water cleaning those plastic tubes as they went in and out, trying to sanitize and keep the ATMs clean. So people move from coming into the branch out to the drive-throughs and ATMs. And as you can imagine, a lot of places the drive-throughs backed up. So some institutions started doing, pull up at the street, call, and someone would come out and help you bank. So a lot of changes have happened. Obviously, the biggest change is online and mobile banking usage has increased dramatically. And as you know, that's a big phenomenon for everybody to start having to get online, use a cell phone, when a lot of people are still using the flip phone. So there's been a lot of changes, learning how to bank, using computers, learning to use it with your cell phone. And as you know, unfortunately for a lot of people, they weren't used to digital banking. They weren't used to, taking a picture of their check and depositing it. So there's a lot of transition going on currently. Social media. I do a lot of speeches in the banking industry, and it's amazing how many credit unions had not gotten into social media that much. In fact, I went in and researched several of your Facebook posts, and I know some of you are doing a great job. You're posting every day, a couple of times a day. Some of you are doing it a couple of times a week, and some of you are doing it a couple of times a month. But social media has become very important for you to be able to communicate with your members. Lobby closings, as you know, it could change daily as opposed, in relation to what's going on in your community with the pandemic. You could have branch closings. You could revise hours so that if you had to shut down, you could do that. Social distancing, communicate with your members that when they come in, they have to social distance, and also remind them when they show up, they have to wear a mask. So social media has become extremely important just in the last several months. So we all had to learn, what do we do? How do we communicate with our members? The other thing that's going on is businesses are closing down and are going bankrupt. The PPP did keep some of the businesses going for a while, but as you know, with the politics going on right now, it's hard to say what's going to happen. But I think we're all going to feel the effects of those restaurants, those small businesses going out of business, people not paying their mortgage payments, paying their credit cards. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the financial industry right now. As we all know, a lot of people are unemployed. Parents are having to stay home with their children. I've got a daughter and a daughter-in-law. Both are my teachers. One has a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. Depends on if they can go to school or not. They could be at home trying to teach while you've got a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old running around. So there's a lot of things like that going on. A lot of parents having to deal with that situation. The good news, though, is digital banking became extremely important. And why does that matter? Members were forced to learn it and use it. If you remember the negative effects of 9/11, well, the positive was that Check 21 came out, to where banks and financial institutions had to digitize all their checks so that checks could move around quickly. So the bad part of 9/11 turned into Check 21, which turned into digital banking. Now with everything that's been going on, it's forcing members to learn to use digital banking. And as you know, digital banking is a lot more profitable for a credit union. You don't have to maintain and manage branches and all the necessary employees. You don't have to spend a lot of money on sanitation, hand sanitizers. You don't have to, pay for posters and all of that. As you know, a lot of the larger banks are actually shutting branches now, moving more to a digital experience. So that's the good news, is that more and more folks are moving over to digital, where they can use digital banking to do their banking needs. The problem with all of that is, and this is very important, when members are using digital banking, it's hard to show them your love. When they're coming in on a weekly basis or maybe a daily basis, they get to see you, they get to know you, you know them. Everybody knows everybody else. It's easy to show them your love when you're doing that way. You can communicate with them. You know what's going on in the community. Well, all of that is tough to do with digital banking. The other bad news behind it is you're having to compete now with all the other credit unions and banks that have a much better digital experience. Many of them got into the digital banking several years ago. They've got better technology. And I've heard the complaints about some of the core processors not supplying the smaller credit unions and smaller banks with the up-to-date technology. You've got the fintechs coming in. You're having to compete with those. In fact, I just got an email yesterday afternoon from Apple promoting their Apple Card, and on it, it says you can get approval within seconds. So all of a sudden now you're having to compete with everybody else that has a much better digital experience. You're also going to see a big growth in digital or direct banks, and this is something you might want to research that we're seeing with that. And I'll give you some examples. You can, FIS Global, I'm sure you're familiar with them. They've got what they call Core on Demand, and Jack Henry has Bank Anywhere. And I'll get more into detail about the benefits of this technology. But this is one area that I think we're going to see, instead of having a branch where everybody in a 3 to 5 mile radius comes into your location, with digital or direct banks, you can target pretty much anybody anywhere with a digital experience. So we'll talk more about that, but this is one area to keep in mind of these two types of technology that's going to be growing. Okay, now we get into the 5 things we want to talk about today. The first thing is to make sure you have a great digital solution. It's critical, as you know. Everything's moving to digital. We've got to get up to speed. And when it comes to digital, you need a big transformation. You need fast onboarding, and you need quick loan approvals. I just mentioned to you Apple's card. They say they can give you approvals within seconds. So as you know, there's a lot of companies out there right now. You can go in and do that. So we need to work on those 2 things. If you're going to expect, to sign up new members, you've got to have a very efficient and fast onboarding, and you need quick loan approvals. Teach your members how to use it. Conduct classes, do webinars. A little later on in the presentation, I'll talk to you about how many webinars that we do a week now. We're doing 25 to 30 webinars a week with financial institutions. So it can be done. The beauty is people are learning how to use Zoom, how to use GoToMeeting. The key would be to start doing training sessions where you can teach people how to bank using those. If you can get into assisted living facilities, nursing homes, they would love for you to come in and show them how to use a computer, how to use their phone. So think in terms of, how do you teach your members how to use this new digital experience? The other thing is learn to use data to target your audience with the right product. As you know, there's a lot of companies out there right now. There's Claritas, there's FIS. A lot of different companies can help you use your data to target your audiences. They can tell you who needs a HELOC, who needs an auto loan, who needs any type of loan. So start looking at how do we use the data. You've got extremely valuable data on your members, and use that to your advantage to cross-sell other products. Learn how to use digital advertising. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of seminars and webinars on this. Just a couple of examples are retargeting, which I know you're very familiar with. If you go online, you search for a new purse or a new pair of shoes or, hunting gear, it shows back up on your Facebook feed, on any type of Google ads. It somehow knows what you've been looking for. My wife and I share an Amazon Prime account, and if I go in looking for hunting gear, she knows about it because it shows up on her feed. So we all need to know how we know how retargeting works. We need to be using that, and also using geo targeting. And I give you a great example of that. Where it works for you is you could target people in a 3 to 5 mile radius of your location. You pick out your criteria of what you want and what you're looking for. How we use it, we used to spend a lot of money going to marketing conferences. We were spending $8,000 and $10,000 per trip to go, pay for the hotel, pay for the fees, ship everything out there. With now, what we can do is we can actually target that actual conference center. So if there's a conference in downtown Boston, I can take the address and I can target people in the banking industry that are going into that area, and somehow Google and Facebook know these people are visiting from out of state. They're coming in, they're going to that conference center. So those are a couple of examples of using digital advertising, and there's a lot of ways to do that, but it actually will benefit you as you target. Now, the key is finding out who are you actually looking for. And a lot of that is you studying your current customers, your current members, to find out what products do they need, what's most profitable for you, because what's big in Boston may not be big somewhere else. So learn your customers, and we'll talk about that a little later, and learn how to use digital marketing. Okay, we talked about the digital bank and targeting a certain industry, and I'll give you a great example of this. And some of you might have heard me talk about this before, but I'm going to talk about baking soda. Baking soda has been around for over 100 years. And when I was growing up, we used baking soda to brush our teeth. And I'm sure if you're my age, you probably did that as well. We would put it in the refrigerator to keep odors out of the refrigerator. If you had a cat, you may sprinkle it in the cat litter box. If you had a pool, you may put it in the pool. As you know, you could use baking soda for 100 and something usage. In fact, there's some books out there, 101 uses of baking soda. Well, a few years back, a real smart marketing expert decided, well, I'm selling this baking soda in this orange box for about 80 cents a pound. I think if I put a refrigerator on the front of that box, I think I can sell more of it at a higher price. And guess what? They did. If you go in the grocery store today, you'll notice that in a different aisle from the baking soda, they're selling baking soda you can put in your refrigerator or your freezer, and they charge more for it. It's the same baking soda. You move over another aisle, and you see they put a cat on the box. Some brilliant marketing person said, well, what if we put a picture of a cat on it and we promote how you can put it in a litter box? Well, all of a sudden they're getting more than $1 more per pound for that same baking soda. As you go through the aisle next time of a grocery store, start paying attention to all the different ways that Arm & Hammer is selling that baking soda. You'll see, it's amazing now. We used to just put our toothbrush into the baking soda, and now they sell it as toothpaste, and you're paying $3 or $4 for a little 6-ounce container of baking soda mixed with a little bit of water in it. So the whole concept would work with banking. With a digital bank now, and I know in the credit union with your charters, it's a little different. It's easier for a bank to do it because a bank can do their charter and change it and go after anybody. You would have to look at your charter. But for example, if you said, well, I'm here in Boston. There's a lot of high-tech people in Boston. Let's set up a credit union just for the high-tech industry. So you set up one, it specializes in high tech, just like you see. I've got here CU Marketing Center for Credit Unions. I also have one for the healthcare called healthcaremarketingcenter.com. You could have multiple sites. So for instance, you could target high tech in Boston, but you could also target high tech in Silicon Valley. So with a digital experience, a digital bank, you can actually target different aisles in the grocery store, so to speak. You may decide, well, I'd rather target agricultural, and you go after farmers all over. So your digital bank could target different industries with that. Now, the other benefit to that, and you could go in today and look, if you go to, I think it's called bankrate.com, you'll see that some banks are paying 80 to 85% on a CD, a one-year CD. But if you look at the national average, it's around 0.29%. Because as you know, in those rural markets, they don't have to pay a lot of money for CDs. So with a digital bank, you could actually go to those rural communities where they're only paying, and 0.29 is the average. So, you know, you could pay that or pay a little bit more. You could pick up core deposits by targeting certain regions using social media. So start looking at digital banking and how it's going to change their industry. Okay, number two, show them the love. As we talked about before, your branches are shut down or closed or weird hours. How do you show them the love? Well, let's talk about social media. Everybody gets caught up on, okay, how do we do social media? What's the compliance issues? How do we do it? What do we say? Let's start with the oldest kind of social media, and that is writing. Why don't we pick up a pen, start using handwritten thank you notes, thanking your members for their business. I've owned my own company now for 40 years. I don't think I've ever received a thank you note from a bank. In fact, I've only received 2 phone calls in my life from a bank asking for my business. You would be amazed now with so many emails going out. And I think I read the other day where we average 150 emails a day. If you get a handwritten thank you note at home, that's going to be the first thing you open up. You can use handwritten notes asking businesses for their business. What a concept that you actually write a note to someone and saying, you know, Neil, we would love to do business with you. When can we meet? You could send cards celebrating birthdays, graduations, babies, promotions. Again, I'm sure all of you have a CRM software to where you can track all your members. This is another great way. On my birthday, I even get a birthday card from my dentist. Who would ever thought? I get one from a Methodist church. So I get a lot of birthday cards, and it's amazing how you remember those things. So keep in mind, how do you find ways to show your members the love? Now you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, Neil, we don't have a way to write thank you cards to all of our members. Well, amazingly, there is some hardware and software that's available to do that. If you go on, I'm sure there's different ones, but just search XY Plotter. And what you're able to do is actually take an ink pen, put it into the plotter, you scan the thank you note, and it'll actually write that thank you note out for you. So you could actually produce some thank you cards with your credit union's logo on it, run it through the plotter, it'll actually write it out. You could scan your alphabet in your handwriting, so it puts the person's name in there with your handwriting. So it's very unique technology to allow you to do handwritten cards, but you're using hardware and software to do that. I'll give you a quick case history. We actually did that. I belong to a very large Methodist church here in Atlanta, 4,000 members. And the problem as we grew is, how do you connect the senior minister with the members? So what we did is we went out and bought 3 of these printers, and we're sending out 50 to 100 thank yous a week. No one in the church, other than a couple of us, know that that is actually that's a note from the minister. They don't know it came off hardware and software to do it. So think in terms of how do you automate those type of cards to let people feel the love. Okay, let's talk about the second oldest form of social media, the telephone. Pick up the phone and make a phone call. Call your members, thank them for their business. believe me, they will be shocked to hear from you, thanking them instead of a telemarketer trying to sell them something. Call and ask them for their business. Call them on their birthdays. You can actually, now there's technology where you can leave a recorded birthday song. So think in terms of how do you send them a note? How do you pick up the phone and call them? Then the next thing is hold everyone accountable. We talked about this being the 5 ways to alter your marketing, but a lot of this is actually sales. You know, you get hired for sales and marketing and they find out your job is really to sell. So when I say hold everyone accountable, as you know, in the banking business, credit unions, it used to be you could open a branch and that's how you grew your assets. Well, now we've got to get back to, if we can't open up branches, what do? As you know, what gets measured gets done. So you've got to decide, what do you want doing, and measure it. Decide who is responsible for the handwritten notes, and you've got to track it every week. Who's writing the scripts? Who's making the phone calls? You've got to measure and make sure they're making those phone calls. You can use a CRM like a Salesforce to track all the activities that they're doing so that you can go in there and pull a report each week to see, are we making those phone calls? Are we sending out the thank you cards? Now, this is an example of when I talk about keeping, you know, reports on what's going on. This is last week at our organization. So and this is a very inexpensive, this is Salesforce, but we have one of the inexpensive packages. We can actually do charts like this. So I can go down in a glance and I could pull this right now for what they did yesterday, but this is last week's. I can see 4 people making phone calls. Chris called 334 people. Jim called 327, all the way down to Phyllis, 205 phone calls. So we hit our goals last week. We called over 1,000 different financial institutions. Some of you might have gotten those phone calls. And then when I look over here, we measure conversations, because you can't sell anything or do anything unless you actually talk to them. So what I can see now is Phyllis, she actually talked to 35 people. Even though she only called 205, she talked to them. And so what we start doing is listening to her phone calls to find out, how is she able to talk to someone? And this is pretty common every week. She can actually get someone on the phone better than some of the other ones can. And then go all the way down. But Jim is great in getting folks on webinars. So when we talked earlier about doing webinars and things like that, Jim got 12 on last week. Phyllis got, excuse me, 5. We had 2 that registered. We don't know where they came from. Chris and Larry got 2, and then email 1. And then we come over here, we track how many webinars we hosted last week. And usually we're doing between 15 and 25 webinars a week for financial institutions. So this is a great example how you can use an inexpensive CRM package like a Salesforce and keep track of everything you're doing. Now, the last thing we want to talk about is our branch experience. Probably some of you have a lot of branches, could be 10 or 20. What are you going to do in those branches? Let's look at what Apple did at their stores. If you've never been to an Apple store, you should go in there and check it out. It's just amazing what they're able to sell. But in the back of the store, they have what they call the Genius Bar, to where you can go in and you can get help with your laptop, your iPod, your cell phone. A great concept where they're helping people, and obviously per square foot, they probably sell more than any other retail store. Why can't your credit union have a digital banking genius? Educating your members on a variety of topics. It could be anything from, and I'll just keep going on that. As far as what type of topics, but train your staff to find out what your members want and need. When you're talking to your members, when you call them, thank them, find out what they're needing. And that's one of the things we try to do by working with 300 organizations, financial institutions. We try to find out what are their needs. During this last 6 months, it was all the materials they needed for PPP, for coronavirus, for social distancing. How do they support their heroes? So it's finding out, what do they want, what do they need? As you probably know, there are 10,000 baby boomers reaching retirement every day. And as you know, that's where the money is. So we've got to find a way to communicate with those baby boomers, and they need help and advice on Social Security, Medicare, wills, trusts, and notary. I just heard from an association out in one of the states out west want to know if I would speak on notary service. And I had to let them know we specialize in marketing, not notary. And they're saying that that is probably the most used service in their credit union was notary service. So the thing is to, and they never knew that. The thing is to find out, what do your members want? What do they need? The demographics are changing every day. So that's what we've got to do. Is it's hard to help someone until you know what their needs are. Okay, we want to move back in. I've only got 5 more minutes, so I'm going to take you through a little bit about what we do and how you can utilize technology in your marketing efforts. So let me go in and I'll end this show, and then we'll go back into our marketing portal. As Walter mentioned, we have a marketing portal called cumarketingcenter.com. We actually have a half a dozen credit unions in your area that have actually registered, so they may be on today, so they're very familiar with it. I'm just going to sign in and show you real quickly. And the concept behind this is that everything you need to market your credit union, we're going to have on this website. As you see on the left, as I scroll down, all the different areas. In fact, we guarantee that if there's something you need that we don't have, we'll actually create it for you and put it on the portal at no additional cost. So as I scroll down, you'll see we've got new creative. We're actually adding over 100 pieces a month now, based on what are the needs of the financial institutions we deal with. So it's not just we go do layouts. We know what marketing materials they need. We've got hundreds of ads, brochures, multiple campaigns. As you can imagine, on the coronavirus, we set up its own button here because we've got hundreds of different materials. Anything related to coronavirus, we're going to have. We even have an area, credit union supplied creative. Some of the larger financial institutions, they have their own creative. They don't need our creative, so we can actually set up a portal for them using their own creative. So when they go in, they can make changes themselves without having to use an ad agency or freelancer. As you'll see in just a minute, you can go in and click on a layout and make changes within seconds. We also have a digital signage solution. So if you've got TVs up in your branches, obviously right now, if your branches are closed, you may not need this, but the beauty with this is whether you're working from home or working from your office, you can go in and change that content instantly, or you can actually program it. Now, as you probably know, there's hundreds of folks out there selling digital signage. The difference is, though, you can go in with our technology, you could create a postcard, you could create social media, and on Facebook, you could do a poster, you could do a flyer, you could do an e-statement or statement stuffer, and put it on the image on your TVs as well. So it's building a campaign using digital signage along with all your other media. Whereas if you go to just the digital sign company, they will only give you the technology and a few layouts to use, but it doesn't match all of your other materials. I can scroll down. We've got the direct mail. We've got all your holiday opening and closing signs, internet banner ads, QR codes, posters, social media here. We've even got radio, statement stuff for switch kits. I'm just going to click on social media. We talked about it, and this has become very important for all of you to go out there and communicate. And I know the difficulty is, what do you say? What can you put on Facebook? As you probably have friends, they post what they had for lunch, what they had for dinner. But as a financial organization, it's hard to sit there and think through, okay, what do we need to do? How do we communicate? So whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter, we're going to have all the materials that you need to go in there and produce your materials. So for instance, under Facebook, I can click on image post, and it's going to pull up literally hundreds of different layouts. So whether you want to promote ACH, which has been, very popular over the last several months, it could be ag loans. You may not have that many ag loans in your location. I can scroll down. You've got Breast Cancer Awareness Month coming up in October. We're going to have creative for you on that. A lot of CD special ads. A lot of you doing CDs now. Promoting checking accounts. The checking accounts, that's more than just a check. And then obviously corn shortage. That has been big all over the country. So we've got a lot of, here's one. It's time to take this little piggy to market. You could go in and put something like that. The next day you could do a totally different layout. What's round, pink, and holds the key to economic recovery. It's talking about your corn. So very creative ways to promote the corn shortage and what business and people need to do. As you know, contactless cards have become important. So all the creative you need for that. So as I scroll down, you'll see it could be coronavirus, first responder type ads. Could be your PPP. We talked about that earlier. What's the best kind of loan we can offer? The kind you don't have to pay back. And as you can see, anything that you need, we're going to have on the site. Cybersecurity Awareness Month is coming up in October. So you could have one of these layouts. I love this one. Meet Helen, your new customer service rep, talking about cybersecurity. So pretty much anything you're going to need, we're going to have. Now, financial abuse of the elderly, that has been, especially in the last 6 months, all over the country, it's a major problem. So we've got layouts for that. So when you log in, you select the layout. This is the one we selected. I come over and it shows the width and the height, and it knows automatically that this is for Facebook. So it actually has the sizes that we need for Facebook. As I scroll down, it gives you your headline and your copy. The worst kind of abuse is the kind you can't see. So you could go in there, you can change anything you want to. If I wanted to say, we want to pick on Carol today, we can say the worst kind of abuse is the kind Carol can't see. And then as we continue scrolling down, once we set up your credit union, it's going to have your logo, all of your branches. We can just click on one here, scroll down, and then we're going to have different photos. So you've got a small gallery here. You could click add image. You could upload your own. You could go to stock images. We've got thousands of stock photos in here. In fact, we could even add your own library. So if you've got photos of your employees, of your members, we could do that. And as you use any of the photos, it'll automatically pull it into your library so that you could go back and click on it and use it quickly. So you're going to have a lot of images. The other thing, we've partnered with Getty Images. So if you see here, they've got 117 million photos that you're going to have access to. So if you don't see anything on the site here that you can use, you can always go to Getty Images and get it, and we'll put it on the site for you. And then once we set you up, we put in your Pantone matching system color. So if I wanted to go in and, for instance, I wanted this dark green or this blue, I could do that. Or I could even go in, click, and pull up all the different Pantone matching system colors. So once we set you up, though, your colors will be right here. You can click on them. You can then click preview, and it's going to build your layout. What was that, in 3 seconds? So that's how quick we were able to produce this layout. Now, when we get through, if you have any questions, I can address them. And then when I click on submit, now the beauty with our technology is you centralize your marketing now. So you could have a loan officer producing layouts. You could have a branch producing them. Instead of calling you at 3 in the afternoon saying, I need an ad for the local football program, they could produce it. It comes to you automatically. So we actually set it up to where it would come back to someone for approval. So in this case, it would go to Neil for approval. You could have 1 level, 2 level, 3 levels. You could even send it to a third-party compliance person. You can decide, where do you want this to go? It may be, this person might be handling your social media, so you want it to go to that person. Obviously, for Facebook, you're going to need a PNG file or a JPEG file, but you may decide, well, I'd like to go ahead and get a PDF file to print out, to put in, up in our lobby or something like that. And then I can click on submit. And then it automatically sends an email out for approval. So I can come over, I can look and see that it's gone to Neil in compliance, waiting on his approval. Once it's been approved, it goes into this category, and then I can go down, I can look at it, I can come over and click on it. And this is the part the regulators love. They love the fact you have a process. You can actually look at the date and the time this ad was approved. So that's how easy it is to take an ad. You go in, produce your layout, can go through your compliance approval process. And if you ever want to come back, whether this ad was done last year or 5 years ago, you can click on the edit button, you can pull it up, and you can change everything on this ad in a matter of seconds. On our digital signage, you can manage all your TVs remotely. And I'm sure some of you already have digital signage. The benefit to our technology is that you can create a whole campaign around it, and then you can go in, and this just shows you all the ads that are on your TVs, and you can go through and move them around, change them. So if I wanted to move this auto loan ad further down in the presentation, I can do that. And then I can come over, if I want to edit something, I can click on it, and I can edit the content. I can actually change the date that I want it to run, turn on, turn off. I can control all of that. So anyway, thank you for your time looking at this. Hopefully it was helpful. I think we're going to have a question and answer in the end, but I'm now going to turn it over to the next presenter. So let me see if I can stop sharing now.
All right, Neil, thank you so much. While we make a little transition here, let's see, because we want to get Michael access. There we go. So Mike Flanagan, I think you should be able to go down and click on the share button now, if I'm not mistaken, which will allow you to get your slides up. And in the meantime, Neil, there is a question about compliance on the slides. If you look at the chat room.
Okay. I'm not sure I see a chat room. You want to read it to me?
Oh, it says, are all the pieces in the marketing center compliant, or is that on the credit union to ensure?
A very good question. Yes, they are all compliant. We are not a law firm. We've been doing this now for 15 years. We've never had a problem with it. Obviously, being in the industry, we kind of know what's compliant, but we highly recommend that you send it through your compliance person or an outside person for approval. But yes, we sort of know the rules, but not always. But we've never had an issue with that at all. Good question. Any others?
That is, if anyone else has a question for Neil, you could just simply unmute your mic if you like, and you could ask it. Please take an opportunity to do so. Don't be shy. The other thing, Neil, is for folks to get a hold of you. What's the best way?
You can go to nreynolds@cumarketingcenter.com, or just go into cumarketingcenter.com and click on the Contact Us button. I would love to hear from you. One more quick thing I didn't mention. I'm sure you're sitting there thinking, well, gosh, what happens if I sign up for it and the credit union across the street signs up for it? We have built in an algorithm that can control that. So when you sign up, you tell us who your competitors are, and if you or anyone, if someone else goes in and tries to create a layout that you've created, it sends an alert to us. So we do monitor that. We've never had an issue with that at all.
And as a network meeting, of course, I encourage any kind of collaboration among all of us that are participating in this event. Another question that was brought up here is the individual said that they love the idea of helping people in nursing homes with their digital needs. How are people doing that during the pandemic? Neil, do you have any experience from any of the folks you're dealing with on how that's being done? Or as a matter of fact, any other credit union folks that are participating in this meeting? If you have some thoughts on that as well, please share.
Well, I would definitely love to hear what other people are doing. I, from personal experience, I have a 96-year-old mother-in-law that is in a assisted living facility or nursing home here in Atlanta. And the problem is they locked it down and only a few people could come in. But before this, they would have a lot of classes, a lot of things like this, where they would come in and teach people how to do things. And I know the residents there loved it. So I know it's hard to do right now until they open things back up. You might try the webinars. It's amazing now with everybody doing Zoom now. I know, you know, a lot of churches now are doing Zoom services. So there's a lot of people now that are used to going to webinars to see stuff and learn stuff.
Beautiful. And so that everyone knows, and please, if you move your cursor to the bottom of the video screen, obviously you'll find a number of icons, or one of those icons is a chat room. If you click on that, you'll be able to see all the different communications that are going on right now. And in particular, one from our next presenter, Mike Flanagan. Mike is with Effective. It's a division of Comcast. And Mike's topic today is update on the streaming wars and how to reach your audience no matter how they watch TV today. And you'll notice in the chat room, Mike is, let's say, teeing up his presentation, asking all of us, can you share a show that you've been binging on and on what platform? And with that, Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks, Walter. You guys can see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes.
Terrific. Thanks. And so I can't see the chat right now, but that was kind of the point was, and in talking about this with Walter as well, if you think back to if this were a real life cocktail party with our friends, not at this hour of the day, but not a Zoom cocktail hour with our friends, what's the topic that comes up all the time? Have you found a show? Is there a show that you're really into today? Oh yeah, and the second piece of that is, where do you find that show? And when you think about how streaming services have kind of exploded, we thought it'd just be a little fun to talk about that. And I promise this isn't a hard pitch as much as just an education on this space that keeps expanding and exploding rapidly. But before I even launch in, I wanted to say great job to Neil. I wanted to reinforce a couple of his points because we talk to a ton of clients across a number of categories all the time. So Neil mentioned the digital experience and how important that is. And we've seen during the pandemic that even categories that are ultimately the very much in your face, go in and do a transaction like automotive, has been working to refine their selling proposition and to complete a lot of the sales process digitally, and then come in or even have, as you guys have seen in TV advertising, get a virtual test, come in and take a test ride as the last step of a process, pre-qualify for a lot of what you're doing, or even have the car delivered to you for a test drive during these times. He also mentioned first-party data and the importance of data, and that's increasingly what we're talking about these days. I'm the digital guy for Advanced Platform Solutions, is kind of digital speak for Effective, but I spend probably 75% of my time talking about the data we can bring to solutions, whether it's our own first-party data on TV viewership, or tapping into third-party data that's reputable like Experian, using the Experian mosaics to find customers that look like yours, finding people who are in the market for various loan products. So that's hugely important. He also mentioned Geo Targeting, which has kind of been a calling card for Effective, we were formerly known as Comcast Spotlight for as long as we've been in existence. The ability to take the power of TV advertising and geo-target it to a zone. I'm coming to you from my home office in Medway, Massachusetts, and that's part of our Milford zone. So the ability to kind of geo-target Metro West, north of Boston, south of Boston, whatever combination you need is hugely important so that you guys can reinforce that you're a local business. And that's what I think about with credit unions. You're a local business, we're a local business. Even though we're part of the big Comcast, NBC Universal family, we're set up with local offices across the Boston market and the other New England markets as well. And I'm happy to say I'm a credit union member. I started with a credit union back when I was 21, and I've maintained that relationship to this day. I think one of the one that I'm part of, hopefully I think is on the call today. I saw that they had RSVP'd for the session. So all good stuff. And I think we really look to serve you guys as best we can, knowing that we've heard from a number of clients that there's a need to kind of get the credit union customer base younger, to educate the community about the benefits of a credit union. And, you know, we're happy to help out with that. So I don't know if, Walter, if there were any specific answers that came up in the chat.
Well, let's see. I see, of course, I threw Fargo in. We have Schitt's Creek. We have to be careful how we say that there. ER on Hulu. So
Yep.
a couple of them, obviously. I don't know if anyone else has any suggestions that they might be binging on.
And even those ones, that's great to see. You know, I think Fargo is now back. I was just rewatching one of the last seasons, even though they aren't connected from season to season. I was just rewatching one of the seasons last week myself. And what we want to kind of talk about today is, you know, there's kind of two places of two ways, at least two flavors of streaming. One is the on-demand ones, and I would consider the big players, the ones that have been around the longest. And kind of in prepping for this, you know, I looked outside my own experience to see, you know, if you talk to Consumer Reports and a number of any of these online guides to evaluate who are the big five. These are the big five in terms of getting that on-demand content that you can access as part of your TV viewing experience. You know, Netflix is kind of the granddaddy of them all. Advertising free, huge library of content. Hulu as well. You mentioned Hulu, a much more narrow audience, not as big a player, but has a mix of their own content, and also has streaming services, live streaming services. Amazon Prime, and I think Neil mentioned shopping on Amazon. If you're paying for Amazon Prime, you've already got that TV content there sitting there waiting for you. HBO we think of as a premium cable channel, but also some people do buy it a la carte and use it there. And Disney Plus is kind of one of the more recent entrances. So these are kind of seen as the big five. My experience, I don't know if yours is the same, is I have a great cable program from Comcast, right? I have all the channels that I could possibly want, including the premium channels. And I was only really moved to get into each of these channels as they developed kind of original programming that everybody was talking about. So whether it was Orange is the New Black, or House of Cards on Netflix, on Hulu, Handmaid's Tale, and some of the programming that they put on with Amazon Prime Video, Mrs. Maisel, the amazing Mrs. Maisel, kind of drove a lot of people to go there. And of course, everybody's aware of all the great content on HBO. Disney Plus, not as kind of interesting to me because what its real focus is content for younger kids. My kids are out of the house and grown, and a ton of, you know, Star Wars stuff, related stuff, which isn't also my thing. But these are the five big players. And then most recently, Apple Plus, which got some notice at the Emmys with the morning show, the show that's Jennifer Aniston's in. And they really have a very limited backlog of content, but they are building some new original content. So there's that. And then NBC Universal also launched our own Peacock, which is, you've probably seen the promotion for that, hopefully. And it's kind of an interesting model because there's a tier of Peacock that you can get without any ads. And then there's a tier that you can get free with regular, you know, a regular dose of ads in it. And that's part of what it's kind of interesting to talk about, where to find the programming. It's good, like I said, cocktail party chatter, but it's also about what do all these services do to take time away from ad-supported media when you need to get your message out. So with Hulu, you can go ad-free. As I think I started with Hulu taking advertising, and then during the pandemic, I upgraded it to get the ad-free model. With Peacock, they've got, like I said, a hybrid model, and it's kind of how Comcast and NBC Universal is approaching this whole streaming wars business. Is they're not going to dictate to consumers that you have to watch TV this way. We'll give you as many options as you want, even if you're not a cable subscriber and you just want to buy high-speed internet from us, or we're your best choice to buy high-speed internet. Then we will give you Peacock and we'll give you a place called Xfinity Flex, where you can house all your streaming services, because we're not going to kind of try to fight the revolution of people watching TV in new ways. We'll kind of embrace it and know that connectivity and data is as important as anything. So a lot to choose from there. We don't see this slowing down. We see it kind of continuing to grow, but it's really who can bring the content, who can bring the marketing to get subscribers. With Peacock, you've got the library of NBC Universal content that goes back with all the Saturday Night Lives and all the great shows on NBC. The Office is also moving next year from Netflix over to Peacock, and I know that's probably the most streamed show that my kids still watch. They never get tired of watching The Office. So a lot that's interesting there. Again, it's trying to find where your content is. So these are the kind of streaming on demand players. Then there's the live streaming players who are, if someone really is committed to cutting the cable cord, they will, try a Tubi, Pluto, Roku, all of these players too. Fubo is known for having more live sports. And these are important parts of the ecosystem for us as well. In fact, you might not expect this, but almost all these players are part of what we offer to our advertisers. So we don't, discriminate. If people want to be part of, if you want to reach cord cutters or people or cord nevers, get a 25 or 27-year-old who's bought internet and now they're trying to find new ways to watch TV, and they're watching on these devices, that's cool with us. We pull that together. Our whole idea is to aggregate the audiences. In fact, I was home a couple weeks ago, had a rare hour or two when I was just working and not on these WebEx calls that I'm on constantly. And I used my Xfinity voice remote. I felt like listening to kind of some good music, but also with a little visual going on too here in this office. So I called up The Last Waltz, which is the movie about the last concert by the band called The Band. Hopefully I'm showing my age with that reference. But to my surprise, it came up on my X1 remote, and it was going to be served to me on Tubi, which I don't usually go out of my way to find content on Tubi, but that movie was playing there on an ad-supported environment. And so it was great. And I saw some local ads as the movie was playing. So I guess my point for us at Effective isn't that we're not going to just try to help you with one way of our business. We put all the stuff together as best we can. We're also we have a huge access to Roku inventory. So we are probably the largest reseller, local reseller of Roku inventory, because we've baked that into our solutions. When you look at this kind of range and value of video content, it's all over the place. You can buy, as a small business, as a medium-sized business, you could buy digital video from 20 different providers in the Boston market or anywhere in New England. There's a number of people. There are radio companies trying to set up their own digital video business. There is broadcast stations. There are people who don't have any kind of endemic inventory of their own, but everyone's out there trying to find some inventory, package it up, and sell it to you. And we understand that you've got a lot of different choices in that. And we're kind of using this chart lately just to explain the differences. You can look all the way over on the left to YouTube, which has a massive amount of video and a massive amount of usage. But are you on user-generated content? Are you in cat videos? How much does that matter to you? We found that financial institutions, healthcare institutions, others really are trying to be conscious of kind of the context of where their advertising runs. Just like social media, I would agree with what Neil said about it's important for you to maximize and be efficient in your social media activity. It'd be foolish to not say that. But you also want to be in the right kind of environment for you. So we've got user-generated content. We've got clips from people who like CBS Sports or USA Today or Market Watch. There's a ton of video out there. You can't go on your phone without getting served a video clip at times. And sometimes that's intrusive, sometimes not what you're looking for, but it's all out there. There are these other branded full episode player ad-supported video on demand. That's FEP AVOD. That's quite a couple of acronyms, but that's Tubi and Pluto and Xumo, like I mentioned here. We've got clips from the likes of, professionally produced clips from NBC and CNN. You think of what the late night TV show guys are doing these days, whether it's Jimmy Fallon or any of the others, half of their, I think a lot of their focus is on creating clips as much as people watching the show at 11:30, because that fuels their business too. And then there's kind of up for us. So this is all full episode player or full episode programming, some people will say. Are you in the 30 or 60-minute shows? This kind of long form content where people are investing their time, they're leaning in, and they're saying, hey, I want to watch these particular shows. And for us, we think the highest value is the authenticated FEP. So authenticating meaning I'm a subscriber. I log in whether I'm watching on demand up on a big screen, or whether I'm watching on a streaming service. The company knows, we know where we're sending that signal. It's running through networks like Bravo, USA, whomever, and it's just kind of a higher level of quality, better brand safety as well. And that makes up the mass amount of our programming. And this is where I would say, going back to the question I posed at the beginning of this, I know certain people just love the programming on Bravo. I think there's something called The Real Housewives I've never really watched. But recently, someone suggested to my wife we start watching Below Deck, which is a show that runs on Bravo. And it's all about these charter cruises on these luxury yachts, and kind of the cast of characters on the ship, and then the cast of characters who come in as their guests. And it seems to be really hot. And it's the rare piece of reality programming that I've really enjoyed. So we start, we watch a little bit of the current season, and we go backwards and we watch more and more episodes of that as kind of our mindless entertainment sometimes in the evening. So that's kind of what we're talking about in terms of authenticated FEP. Which all this creates is very complex ecosystem, right? When you were a viewer, or if you were a marketer 20 years ago, it was very easy to buy a couple of broadcast channels, maybe some radio, and maybe even, dare I say it, a newspaper ad, and you could really say you hit the whole market. Now, just with TV, there's so many choices. You guys know this. As I said before, you've got broadcast stations, you've got premium channels, you've got all our cable channels that we insert on, and then you've got these various other services, Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, all these vying for consumers' time. And it's really kind of it's an attention economy today. The more that these services proliferate, the more kind of precious it is to get their time, because it's you can't just do one or two things and get the reach and frequency that you want for your message. Then when you add on to that all these other services, the way that people can watch TV. So like I said before, ad-supported video on demand, or apps, or with niche, there's these niche subscription video on demand services. With OTT, again, you could go OTT through Sling, through Pluto, and then all the cable providers out there. So whether it's Comcast, Xfinity, Verizon, Cox down in Rhode Island, there's a number of providers. And then the last ring here is devices. There's thousands and thousands of ways to watch TV these days. You can watch TV on your PlayStation, you can watch it on your iPad, you can watch it on a smart TV, which, we're really doing that a lot these days. Connected TV impressions are exploding. You can see it in any kind of media data that you look at, which has actually led to some fraud issues too. If you've seen it in the trades lately, whenever there's growth in something, somebody somewhere will figure out a way to try to take advantage of it. So what was happening it came out a couple weeks ago, was that someone set themselves up as a programmatic connected TV impression seller, faked that they were getting impressions from the networks that are really viable, and resold them to people who are buying programmatically on exchanges. And what that led to is, so the fakers made a lot of money. The advertisers missed out on that time. So one thing, I suppose none of us are immune from some form of fraud, but if one thing I've found, the more that I've looked at our competitors and us over these last 2 or 3 years, if someone is promising you something that sounds too good to be true in the digital video TV space, it probably is too good to be true. And the value has been pretty well established here. And it really comes back to, do you have the inventory? Can you control the inventory? Do you trust your provider? Can you trust their data? But I'll get to that in a minute. But again, the biggest challenge for you, for us, is the more that this fragments, the more important it is to focus back on that target audience in the center. I've been with Effective for 14 years. Before that, I was at the Boston Globe and Boston.com. And for a long time, our TV strategy and our digital strategy were two separate things. They really weren't very connected at all. But now we're just saying, this is TV. This is the state of TV today. We're unifying these things to find the audience, because everything I've talked about so far that pulls apart audiences, we need to knit back together, and not thinking about it on a device perspective, like how am I going to catch people on their phones or on their tablets. We'll do that for you. But if you tell us the audience, we can find them across all those screens. So some of you may have seen this. If you've ever sat in a presentation with someone from Effective, hopefully you've seen something that looks like this. And it's just us trying to simplify for the marketplace, even for our staff. You used to watch TV one way on HG. Now you can watch it, 12 different ways or more. And so for us, whether they're Comcast subscribers or not, whether they are on cable or not, we can pull together the audience, because we have actually the rights, the insertion rights for streaming and across all these devices. And so I wanted to put just a little data to this in case you were wondering. It comes up quite a bit. People say to us, what has changed in viewership during COVID? What has changed in happening with streaming services? If you looked at this slide, and this is done by Nielsen, this is not from our own internal data, because our own internal data is really based on TV viewership in the set-top box. It's the richest, biggest form of collection of information on data you can find it basically in the US, based on Comcast's size and the number of boxes we have in your homes. And we, of course, anonymize it, keep it privacy compliant, but we can look at viewership across those huge groups. But if you looked at this, this is from Nielsen, because they can really look at the outside world too. So if you looked at this slide 3 or 4 years ago, it might have been 70% live viewing and 30% streaming and on-demand viewership across other devices. That's clearly exploded because we've made it easier for people to watch on demand, to watch streaming, to use these other platforms. And I forgot that this slide had the artwork from Below Deck Mediterranean, one of our shows that we're watching these days. You can also see that the usage on this varies quite a bit. It kind of makes sense that adults 50 to 64, you might think, okay, they're not really using streaming services, but they're spending 30% of their time on streaming services and time-shifted viewing, including our video on demand. Whereas 18 to 34, that age group, that cohort, coming out of college, or even young adults, they're spending 64% of their time on streaming connected services. So again, we're not doing our job if we don't talk to you about the kind of reality of what's going on and design your media plans in that same way. I talk to clients all the time. Last week, I was talking to an agency down in Baltimore that works with our a business that runs across multiple markets. I have the New England, New York, Pennsylvania markets, and the entire Midwest in my team as part of my responsibilities. And the really, really super smart woman we were dealing with from the agency. It was actually from a plumbing and kind of home improvement home. It wasn't a client. It wasn't a credit union. And they have built their business with cable advertising. They're a huge client of ours. They spend quite a bit on our cable networks. But she said, I'm really not ready to take the leap into doing streaming yet. I've built the business so well using cable. And I was in this awkward position of trying to say, that's great. I'm a big fan of our cable products too, but the reality is we want to add in that additional reach from OTT viewers and people who are 25, 28, 32, who just got their first home. They're going to start to need some of your home services. And I can assure you they're streaming. And we want to make sure that we're helping you with that. So that whether that's using us or someone else, OTT is clearly a part. In Boston, we often get questions about cord cutters, who's still watching TV. You know, sometimes the narrative is everybody's cut the cord, which we know is not the case. Or in fact, we have a lot more cord stackers. You know, at my house, of course, I'm an Xfinity subscriber, but we have put into our X1 box Amazon Prime and Hulu and Netflix and YouTube. So Comcast, the big company, said, you would think that those services kind of threaten us, but we want to make it easier for the subscriber to navigate through all the things that they can watch. And so we brought them into our X1 experience. And so I have all those services and I toggle around among them. So that if you look at people who just subscribe to cable, that's 65% of the market. But the big group is cord stackers. This is the vast majority of the market. So they have some combination of cable, video on demand, and OTT. YouTube, the general site YouTube, has high usage. This is based on Scarborough data. Yeah, Scarborough data. So it's not my data, it's a third party saying that. So YouTube, 64% of the market has used it in the last 30 days. Netflix, kind of the leader among streaming services because it's, you know, efficient, ad-free, and a big catalog of products. Amazon Prime growing 35%. OTT only with no cable penetration, no cable subscription, a third of the market at that point. And then Hulu, which gets a lot of press and buzz, but it's a kind of a more narrow audience. It's not as big an audience. And if you look at that stuff, this kind of goes into what you should think about, I think, as marketers. And then I can't see it right now, but I think there's a YouTube TV one there too. So YouTube TV, their live streaming service, is also small but growing. But what we need to try to consider is which of these services are ad insertable or not. So YouTube, the regular service, is ad insertable, but it's short form video. Netflix, great long form content, but it's ad free. Amazon Prime, ad free. Hulu, like many of you know, there's a tier that's ad free. So you have to kind of navigate all this. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, that these are all stealing attention and time from us being, you know, from getting your message out there in the most efficient way possible. And so I've just, you know, with all that, and again, I really tried hard not to make this a sales pitch for us, more as just a, and I'll see if there's any questions when I wrap this up, but with all these things to consider, you know, we've seen and we've published a number of white papers on this, and we can, if anyone has interest in our white papers, we can certainly send them out. But we've seen that OTT being added to a TV campaign definitely increases reach. It's a great complement to your plan, but some things to consider. I think I've said fragmented 15 times during this little talk. So the more the things fragment, the more it's important to focus not just on one solution, like I'm going to find them here or there, but fall on the audience rather than trying to get it all from one provider or, you know, some kind of legacy media. Again, Neil said it at the outset, and I'll say it again: credible data insights to build your campaign. The data is really king. What I think one of our data people in New England always says, "In God we trust, everyone else must bring data." I'm sure that's stolen from somewhere else, but that is what we're bringing to the table these days with insights from our set-top boxes. Consider the environment where you run. There's a lot of places you can run. There's a lot of places for your message. And I'm not saying that there's a wrong way, but this is something that we've increasingly found that people do value being in networks, being on brands where they kind of like the brand association. It reflects on your brand as well. And then as you have conversations with us or other providers, you know, ask them a couple questions. You know, what is the mix that they can offer in terms of full episode player programming, or is it short form? Also, how many of the impressions that they are talking about with you do they actually own and control, or do they kind of do a program with you and then go try to find inventory that's available programmatically? That is a question that most clients are asking me now, saying, and it's only been in the last year, because they're, like I said, you have a million choices in OTT. Everybody's going to sound like the same exact thing. but clients have come back to us and said, hey, Mike, how much of this inventory do you kind of actually have available right now? And that's kind of our calling card. We actually have, because we're Comcast effective, because we have those insertion rights and all the networks that we insert on from a linear perspective. We also acquire a lot more inventory. We have a deal with Roku, like I said. The cable networks love to bring their inventory to us because we don't compete with their national sales teams. We take all the inventory that they give us, we aggregate it, we package it up, and we bring it to you guys on a zone or a DMA basis. And then transparency in campaign reporting, making sure that if you make a choice to evaluate different OTT vendors, are you getting what you were promised? Is it being delivered in the geography you want? Are you running on the networks that you thought you were? What kind of targeting can you offer? This is a conversation we have all the time, because we feel like an educated buyer of media, like the folks on the call today, can evaluate us and other players. But these are some of the questions that I think you should ask. So anyway, I know that was kind of quick, and I can stop sharing, see if there's any questions in the chat. I appreciate the opportunity to just talk about what's going on in this space. I find it fascinating, even beyond the fact that my income depends on it. But it's just great to see all the stuff that's going on.
Michael, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate the time that you're taking. I have a question, not only for you, but for Neil as well. And Neil, if I can engage you back in the conversation. And, when you think about it, I mean, Mike, we look at your background, obviously, with Effective and Comcast and going back to the Boston Globe. Neil and Neil's expertise and background, with roots at J. Walter Thompson ad agency. So that being said, and given those backgrounds and your experience, what would both of you say is the biggest challenge confronting marketers today from effectively engaging audiences? And what would be the first step you would recommend a marketer should take to address it? So again, what is the biggest challenge confronting marketers today from effectively engaging their audiences, in your opinion? And what would be the first step you would recommend that the marketer should take to address it?
Well, I'll jump in first on that, Walter. Let's remember this, been said for years, 50% of all advertising is wasted. The problem is knowing which 50%. Well, as Mike was just discussing and I discussed earlier, nowadays with the technology, you can target people and the results quickly. You can tell, did they open it? Did they click it? Did they respond? Did they buy the product? Did they leave it in the shopping cart? So the key for all marketing now is figure out, first of all, who do we want to target? I mean, and if you think about it, as I said earlier, go back and research your best members, where are you making the money, and then figure out, okay, how do I find a group like that, and how can I target that group, either through, digitally trying to find them, or as he was talking about, targeting them on TV, targeting them on their Facebook, targeting them on Google Ads. So that's the challenge, is get up to speed as quick as possible on the best way to reach your potential market that you want to reach.
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, it's starting with the audience, and it's one of the more frustrating things with us and with our sales reps. If they go out, they meet with a client, and we say, well, who do they want to reach? Adults 25 to 54. Okay, well that's a very limited kind of scope. Tell me more about it. Tell us more about what you think where they're at in their purchase life cycle. Are they, we're looking for kind of burgeoning homeowners who are just on the way up? Are we looking for people who have kind of power elite types who are already in their homes and they're looking to, add on CDs for a safety net with all the stock market turbulence? Like, we need to get better about asking a lot of questions to understand that audience, because we have so much at our fingertips to once the client figures that out. And we also will often do a BYOD, bring your own data. Our data and innovation team is great at saying, okay, do you have a CRM file? Can we look at what your data looks like? in a, again, an anonymized third-party way. Can you segment out your list? How can we gain insights from that? And then how we can apply the media. So I start with the audience. The second piece is, I think that maybe it's the paradox of choice. There are so many ways that you can spend your money these days in marketing that then I think sometimes it feels good to, dabble in a lot of different things, but can you really pull it together in a holistic way and track what's working for you? Because I think sometimes if you got so many things going on, and I know credit unions have a relatively limited, tight budget, so you have to make smart choices and say, okay, I saw we weren't doing this, and we started doing, test and kind of get better and optimize. We weren't doing anything here. We added in these 2 channels, and now we can see traffic to our website lifting. We can see the phone calls coming. We think that that's going to play out into people opening more accounts, for example.
When you look at it, Mike, a lot of the focus is relative to television. And I mean, you laid it out with the graphics. It's like, oh my God, back in the days when I was a kid, there were 3 broadcast networks. That was it, and then maybe you had 3 local channels. I know there was a couple more in the Boston market back in the early days. Today, I mean, look at all the variety that's there. Also, when you think about it, consumers are so trained today, they're 24/7. You have to be there for them. They also like options. When you look at it, you could say, well, I only do print advertising, I only do television advertising, or only radio. How does one really, and again, for you as to Neil to chime in on this, when you look at the challenges that are there, is it best to throw stuff across the board into several, media in trying to reach an audience? Obviously, you're looking at what's the message you want to get out, what's the target audience. But being that consumers are all over the place today, using a variety of media 24/7, when it comes to creating a game plan, any specific guidelines that you could advise for folks? And let me also invite anyone that's participating today from the different credit unions, if there's something that you want to add to this as well from your own experience, please do. You can unmute your mic and chime in. But let me throw that question to you guys.
Can I try that one for a second, Bob? So especially, again, I'll keep going back to data. For years, for decades, people would say, here's how I want to buy TV with you. I know people are watching the Celtics in the playoffs. I know that I believe as a client that people watch during prime time, or this is the network that I watch, so I want to run there. Now and maybe some of you have seen it, this data builds brands analysis and white paper that we've done. If anybody on the call hasn't seen it, I'd be happy to send it out to you. We analyzed 41,000 different campaigns that ran across the Comcast footprint. And we said, okay, to your point, that people are watching so many things that you cannot rely on 3 or 4 networks. You cannot rely on just trying to reach them in prime time. They're watching it all times. So we can take the real data insights. We can take the guesswork out of the media buying that we used to do like 20 or 30 years ago. Like, here's how it works. I'm pretty sure I can get my audience this way. Well, now we can actually look at that. And so we can hit a bunch of, geo targeting, but also all those networks we can bring to bear on cable TV and on digital streaming. Means that even if people are watching, it'd be foolish to try to predict what everybody on the call is going to watch tonight. What show are you going to watch tonight, at what time, on what platform? Like, we'd have 40 different answers, right? Because everybody would be 40 different ways. But the more that we can aggregate the impressions and concentrate them in the trade area where where the credit unions do business, that's kind of what we try to do. So take the guesswork out.
Well, hey, listen, did you sell out for tonight? When you think about it, the debates are going to be, right? So, I mean, they're talking about the audiences for that. It got to be crazy.
I was talking to our political manager in Philly this morning, and yeah, the debate, it'll be very interesting. And she said this is going to be a Super Bowl rating, but year to date in Philadelphia, just in Philadelphia, $65 million has been spent on TV advertising just year to date in Philadelphia. And the next month is going to be insane because Pennsylvania is a big swing state, maybe one of the most important states out there. So yeah, it's been fascinating.
Walter, I'll jump in on that one. The hard part, and Mike and I can sit here and talk about data. is when that high school cheerleader walks into your office and she wants to sell you an ad in that football program, and you've been doing it for years. How do you tell that person, well, no, we've decided that's not really bringing us anything. We're going to spend our money on Google ads or, or targeted TV commercials. You've got to look at, as I talked about earlier, what are we really trying to do? You've got to take care of your members. And part of that could be how much money do you put into the local community? It could be that banner on the center field fence. It's, better yet, get your employees out there coaching, get them teaching the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts. If you're really a community financial institution, a lot of that goes a long way getting involved. And I've seen a lot of financial institutions will say, okay, who's going to be in the Rotary Club? Who's going to be in the Kiwanis Club? Who's going to be the Girl Scout leader? Who's going to be, take your employees and, as I talked earlier, hold them accountable. Sit down and say, who's going to get involved in the community? If we're really going to be a community where that is our market, let's find ways to target that community. It might not be on Google. It may not be on, Facebook, but somebody needs to strategically think through, who are we trying to reach? How's the best way to reach them? And it may not be ads at all.
Well, I also think too, Neil, it's also very important, like in those regards, just like you were saying, that we take the opportunity to make sure that you are not bashful about putting your logo where you need to put your logo. And by that, I mean, like you're just saying, so you have somebody coaching or somebody that's out in the community, hey, I'm wearing my shirt, have your credit union's logo wear on if you're a coach or whatever it is, so that folks can see that, so-and-so credit union is out there and doing service within the community. I think that's very important. I know circumstances I've seen where credit unions, were holding events and there was no signage up and people passing by wondering what's going on. And this was like a member appreciation event. The credit union should have its logo out there or some kind of signage, such and such credit union thanking our members, for doing banking with us. So that there's something that's communicated. But I think it's you have to look for every opportunity you can today to keep your name in the public spotlight. I think that's so important because if it's not there, someone else's will be there, and it's like I think I go back to the days of when they talk about like Coca-Cola. Advertising, that how many millions that they spend in advertising, and if they were just to lessen that just by a little bit, how much market share they would lose. So they basically, it's like riding a wave. When you're at the peak of the wave, you have to work harder and do all much more to stay at the top of that wave. And I think that all plays out. But believe me, I think for marketers today, in today's environment, God bless you, because the challenges are crazy. It is crazy. And particularly when you have a limited budget, like many credit union folks have, and to try and reach audiences, not only you want to attract young people, which is the future of the credit union, but my God, you have to sustain your elder members as well, too. So, playing that balance and being smart with how you do it is extremely, extremely challenging. Is there anyone from any of the credit unions that would disagree with that challenge? I'm not hearing anyone say anything. I hope people aren't asleep. Oh, well. Well, let's do this. As we're wrapping up here at 11:32, Neil, Michael, why don't we just have, again, let us know the best way for those that are participating to get in touch with you, and maybe a closing comment or two.
Mike, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll drop my email address in the chat. Again, we have a teams of folks all across New England. What we love to do is talk to local businesses about how we can help. And the credit union category has been a really healthy and diverse one for us. So we thank you guys for your partnership. And, my team or our data team can always come to help you try to figure out where you want to go next. We really appreciate the partnership we've crafted over the years. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I just put in my email address as well into the chat if you want to look at that. I know a lot of you've gone through a lot of this year's budget, whether it was hand sanitizers or social distancing or mask and all of that. We've got a special promotion going on now that'll get you through this year. So if you're interested in our technology and how you could use it, if you would just contact me, let me know. We'd like to set up a one-on-one demo with you so you can see how it would benefit your credit union. And again, I want to thank all of you for allowing Mike and I to come in and talk today. We appreciate it.
All right, and Neil and Michael, thank you too very much for sharing your words of wisdom today. We do appreciate it much. And I also want to thank all the attendees, all our member credit unions for participating in today's meeting. Don't forget, moving forward together, our cooperative virtual annual meeting and convention coming up October 14th through the 16th. Please do go to our website, take a look, please register. We're looking forward to having you join us, and hopefully it won't be as silent in participating in our convention as you may have been here, but I'm sure that you'll gain a lot of good insights and a lot of good and valuable knowledge. So again, thank you all for being part of today's event, and that concludes our webinar. Take care now. Bye-bye.